The Chiefs and 49ers are going to the Super Bowl. The Lions and Ravens are going to Cancun. It was a great championship Sunday. Two dynamic games with somewhat surprising outcomes, and we're going to get into them today. First off, the Lions lost in spectacular fashion to the 49ers. 49ers scored 27 straight points. A lot of mistakes on the Lions front. And the question now seems to be not what they're going to do going forward, but who do we point fingers at in the here and the now? A lot of fingers going to Dan Campbell, somewhat understandable. A lot of criticism about his fourth down policy. Again, somewhat understandable. But that's taking away from the fact that there were dropped interceptions, there were dropped passes on third down, fourth down, there were fumbles in his own territory, which led to points. A lot went wrong for the Lions in the second half. Most of it Dan Campbell couldn't control. And you can always hindsight and say, well, the Lions shouldn't have gone for it there. They should have taken the points. The Lions have lived and died by being hyper-aggressive on fourth down all year. They shouldn't have changed it there. I do not disagree with Dan Campbell's decisions at all. You beat the Rams, you beat the Buccaneers, you won 12 games because you were aggressive on fourth down, and most times it worked out for you. Sometimes it did. Sometimes you fail to pick up a 2-point conversion from the 7. Sometimes you lose a game you should win. But at the end of the day, the Lions thrived on this style of play. It didn't work out because of drops, because of bad play calls, for whatever reason you want to say. But at the end of the day, the Lions remained true to their identity, what got them to the conference championship game. And if you're going to try and blame Dan Campbell for that, go for it, man. He's the best coach in Lions history, and he's only been there 3 seasons. Detroit's going to be just fine going forward from this. Dan Campbell is still a great coach, still going to win Coach of the Year. And a bunch of criticism at him when his players also let him down feels a bit, bit haterish.
Well, there's a difference between being aggressive and just making flat out dumb decisions. And to the people out there that'll use this game to perpetuate the narrative that Dan Campbell is a bad head coach, I think those people are out of their mind. Because when you look at what he's built in combination, what's the Lions GM's name? Brad Holmes. In combination with Brad Holmes over the last few years, the way they've built this Lions organization, it's been impressive, it's been incredible. The fact they got to a conference championship after just a few years ago looking like one of the worst teams in the NFL, it is something to compliment Dan Campbell on. But the reason the Lions lost this game is Dan Campbell. He outcoached and beat the piss out of the 49ers, who were potentially the best team in the NFL this season outside of the Ravens, certainly the best team in the NFC. You outcoached him. People will talk about both field goals, but the decision that I think is the one that cost them the game is at halftime. They're up by 17 points. They smartly took the field goal at the end of the first half to go up by 3 scores. Then the 49ers go out there. They march right down the field. They're unable to get a touchdown, but they kick a field goal. Then the Lions march back down the field. Unfortunately, they're facing a 4th down. They should have just taken that field goal, taken the opportunity to even the score at what it was heading into halftime. You regain the momentum that the 49ers kind of grabbed back a little bit coming out of halftime and driving down the field and getting a field goal, and instead they go for it, they don't get it, you hand the momentum back to the 49ers, the 49ers drive down the field, score a touchdown, then all of a sudden your rookie running back fumbles in a big moment, and the game is tied. So that is what I think truly cost them the game, that one decision. I don't really understand why he would go for that there, because you have the ability to make the score back what it was. You have the ability to once again make it a 3-score game, and he chose not to. I understand the reasoning around the second time he went for it on 4th down, because it was kind of slipping away from him. The game wasn't exactly in the Lions' favor anymore, and the 49ers were the ones with all of the momentum. Granted, I think I probably still would have kicked the field goal, but I understand that reasoning more than I do the first one, and I think the first one is truly what caused the game to get out of control.
You don't understand the first one because it didn't succeed. If Dan Campbell picked up that first down with the Lions offense, they go down and score a touchdown, game's over. They're done. They had the chance to go out there and in the game by scoring a touchdown. They didn't succeed. They thought, okay, it's still going to be a bit competitive. We're still going to be in this. But if we can score a touchdown here, it's over. Didn't score a touchdown, wound up not being over. It's all the benefit of hindsight saying, well, if he kicked the field goal, it would have been even at half. If he put his boot on their neck there, they were done. The game was over. The Lions were going to their first ever Super Bowl.
Yeah,
it's easy to second guess him when he's wrong. If he got it right, if he picked up the 4th down, different story.
You could say that the game is done, the game is over if they go down and score a touchdown, but The flip side of that is what happens if they don't score a touchdown there? What happens if they fail on that 4th down conversion and the 49ers go down and score a touchdown right away? We saw what happened.
They're still up by 2 scores. That's what happens. You're still up by 2 scores. You say, okay, I think my defense can hold. His defense didn't hold.
And if you kick a field goal, you're still up by 3 scores, which is what you had before halftime when you had all the momentum in your favor in the 49ers stadium where the crowd had already been quieted down.
Well, as we saw, that 17-point margin really didn't matter that much in the grand scheme
because they just punted it away by not kicking the first field goal, which would have kept the 3-score lead.
If it worked out, it would have been one of the greatest coaching moments in the AFC Championship game. It didn't work out, so be it. I'd like to, you're being a hater.
I'm not being
celebrating a take you broke out in the first round. Oh, Dan Campbell's ego is going to cost him this game. You broke that out for the Rams, who got beaten up by the Lions. You were hoping the Lions lost to the Buccaneers. Difference between beating up and dominating.
And
you wanted to bring it out against the Buccaneers. You were waiting for Dan Campbell to stumble. You've been biding your time, chomping at the bit. Still bitter you said they weren't contenders. They wound up being in a 1-score game with the NFC champion. You are a hater to the core.
You're perpetuating a ridiculous narrative, and you do this every single time I bring something up that makes sense. And I said
what makes sense here?
The fact that Dan Campbell's ego has a tendency to get in his head sometimes, and he makes a decision that's not the smartest decision at the time.
I don't think you know what ego means.
And people keep throwing the analytics out there that it was more favorable to go for it on those 4th down. The analytics they're talking about. Do you want to know the percent difference in whether they took a field goal or whether they converted that 1st down?
Do you think Dan Campbell care about analytics?
It's around 0.3%. So the analytics people that are throwing it out there and the difference between the 2 decisions, it's just ridiculous. You have to feel the flow of the game more, something that Dan Campbell didn't do, something he didn't do in the Cowboys game when he still went for the 2-point conversion, and that's something he has a tendency to do. And if he continues to do that next year, I think it's going to not bode well for the Lions. Did you want Dan Campbell to be a liar?
What? When he went out and told his Lions team, hey, boys, we're going to go down the field in this final drive. We're going to score a touchdown, and then we're going for 2, and we're going to effing win this game. Did you want him to lie to his team and say, well, circumstances change? Or did you just want him to go downhill 100 miles an hour? This is who Dan Campbell is. This is not going to change. And the fact they have made it this far should be indicative of the fact that it works out. Maybe it doesn't work out as well when the NFC North is better next year. Maybe it doesn't work out as well when Ben Johnson isn't there to help him, although Ben Johnson did not have a special second half. Good luck in Washington, pal. Hopefully Drake May can save your bacon. It's who Dan Campbell is. You can analytics it. You can say, oh, well, this, that, and the other. Look what happened. It's never going to change. Saying, oh, it should be different. Great. It's wishful thinking. This worked for him, and he's going to keep doing it.
Well, the odds that they ever make it back to a conference championship are not in their favor. I mean, it's only the second one they've ever been to in their entire franchise's history. You look at other teams' history, the 2014 Seahawks, they're going for back-to-back Super Bowls. They lose in the Super Bowl. Next thing you know, they haven't been to a conference championship since then. The 2015 Panthers go 15-1, lose the Super Bowl, have been to 1 playoff game since then. The 2009-2010 Jets, they go to 2 conference championships in a row. Haven't been to the playoffs.
Is this an intentional
bit of shenaniganry? But they've been pathetic since then. You take a look at the 2017 Jaguars.
This has to be
great team, balled out. Have been pathetic since then.
This has to be intentional. Do you realize how much cap space the Lions have? How good they are at drafting? How many second-round gems, late-round gems they have pulled out with their current general manager and head coach? The trajectory is only up for the Detroit Lions.
That is not true.
Maybe they don't make it back to the conference championship game, but they are still in a great spot. They don't have to pay a bunch of people. They've still got their guys on young contracts. They can afford to maybe give out 1 major contract, extend Goff. They're not giving him $50 million. They're going to get him on a discount. And they will be Oakley Dokley going forward. Like this is delusion. This is legitimate delusion for a man you do not like. And
you're the one that's disagreeing with Dan Campbell, your butt buddy over there.
Dan Campbell's not my butt. He said it's going to be harder. He didn't say it wasn't going to happen.
He said this may be their only chance to ever go to the Super Bowl, and he's 100% right. You look at recent history, unless you're Tom Brady, unless you're Patrick Mahomes, unless you're Aaron Rodgers, unless you're a team coached by Kyle Shanahan, the odds you'll ever make it back to another conference championship are very small because it does not happen. I mean, the 2019 Titans, they captured a little bit of lightning in a
Why
bottle.
are the Lions going to be worse next year?
Lost in the conference. I didn't say they'd be worse next year. They just won 11 games. They're going to be playing in a very good NFC North. They'll probably still be a playoff team. But the idea that it's going to be easy to go back to a conference championship, it's not going to be. Because you're going to have the 49ers. They're still going to be right in the thick of things. The entire NFC North, I think, is going. We talked about this in previous weeks. Going to be
the Packers are not going to be as good as people think they're going to be with Love, and the Bears are still 2 years away.
And you mentioned, they're for sure going to be good next year. That's the furthest thing from a sure thing. I mean, you look at this
furthest thing from a sure thing. Who are they losing? Their offensive coordinator. That's it. They can replace it.
I mean, look how that worked out for the Eagles this year.
You mean they made the playoffs? Shocking.
And they lost in embarrassing fashion, and there was talks about Nick Sirianni getting fired.
This is the only team who was playing in the conference championship game who had a clear, massive disparity on one side of the ball. Every other team had a good offense and a good defense. The Detroit Lions did not have a defense, but have a ton of cap space going forward, have draft capital, and you think they're going to be worse when they have a super easy area to address? Any improvement on that side of the ball?
When did I say they're going to be worse?
You said they're going to be worse.
When did I say that?
During this recording.
I did not say that.
You said they're not going back to the conference championship game. That is, in fact, being worse, not being in the same spot.
That's not making it as far as, I mean, would you call the Ravens, if next year the Ravens, I don't know exactly how to phrase this.
Yeah, because you can't phrase it. If the Ravens win every single game and lose the divisional round, they're still worse than they were last season. Like, if they don't make it as far, they're worse. This is not a crazy concept.
The quality of a team isn't exactly determined by how far they make it in the playoffs, because if you're going to perpetuate that narrative, you say quarterback wins are certainly a quarterback stat. You've said that in the past, and they're
more of a quarterback stat than anyone else.
You propagate the narrative that Josh Allen is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, but he's made it to one conference championship game and he's lost that. So how can you think all these things and then look at Josh Allen and say he's a top 3 quarterback in the NFL? Those lines of thinking
played better in the playoffs, and the other quarterbacks who've made it to conference championship games in the past have not been able to maintain the level of success. I mean, do you want to talk about Tom Brady, who was making the conference championship game a few years ago in Tampa Bay? Not there anymore. Do you want to talk about Aaron Rodgers, who has no Achilles and is washed up? Josh Allen's a top 3 quarterback, man. You're trying to go at this with a little gotcha line of a different conversation. At the end of the day, if the Lions don't make it back to the NFC Championship game, they have regressed.
Lions fans know it better than anyone else because they've been to 2 conference championships in their entire franchise.
They have no experience.
Can I finish a point?
Can you make a point?
I've made a point and you just keep talking over me because you know I'm right. And
I know you're right.
Dan Campbell is right. It's really hard to make it back. I'm sure in 2014, when the Colts had Andrew Luck, they have a franchise quarterback who looks like he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. I'm sure they thought they were going to be back. And they haven't been back since then, and it's a decade later.
Is Hutch going to retire all of a sudden? Is he going to retire 3 years into his career and say, well, I keep getting beat up. I don't want to play anymore? You are bringing extraordinary circumstance into this with the Luck retirement, saying, see, it's hard.
It is really hard to rebuild the magic of a deep playoff run year in and year out. I just mentioned it. You can, I mean, if you want to look back at I know you haven't looked back because you haven't been prepared to look at the history of the last decade and what teams really go back to conference championships. But unless you're Patrick Mahomes, unless you're Tom Brady, unless you're Aaron Rodgers, unless you're a team coached by Kyle Shanahan.
Every quarterback you named is currently in the AFC. The path is clear in the NFC.
Unless you're Kyle Shanahan in the NFC, it's a constant revolving door of teams that are going to the conference championship and teams that are going to the Super Bowl. There's not much else to it.
They've just hit their window. You're
the
saying,
Falcons,
they can't
when they
go
went
back.
to the Super Bowl,
well, 3
they
years
have a
from
promising
now,
young team, and then they never go back to the Super Bowl again.
They had a promising young team because they used all their cap space, bought in on vets, and had it be their 1 year. This is not another team which went to the Super Bowl. This was not a buy-in and they'll make a deep run this year. They weren't supposed to be here. There is still clear room for improvement here. They are not your typical conference champion.
I really think you're not even listening to me.
I don't think you're making a single good point. Like you're saying, look at these other teams, which are clearly different from the Lions. They didn't go back, so the Lions aren't going back.
I don't think you're listening to a word I'm saying. I'm saying it is really hard to go back And then you're just saying, oh, but they have all these things it's going to give them the ability to get back there, which is
I'm not
fine.
disputing it's hard. I'm saying they're one of the two
Then
or three
what
best
problem
teams
do you
in
have?
the NFC. They're probably going to go back. Maybe not next year, but they will certainly make another conference championship in Dan Campbell's tenure. This is not their one chance. Dan Campbell is depressed, and he is wrong about that. They will have another shot. They will have another bite at the apple.
We'll see what happens to Jared Goff when Ben Johnson leaves. We'll see what happens to that offense.
I can't wait. Anyway, on that pleasant note, to a game we probably agree on the outcome of and have less controversial opinions, Baltimore Ravens looked terrible offensively against the Kansas City Chiefs. Scored 10 points. Lamar Jackson, 2 really big turnovers, which ultimately cost Baltimore the game. Their defense, people are going to try and blame their defense for this loss. If you hold Patrick Mahomes and company to 17 points and have all your players really play to their expectations, Hamilton, Smith, that D-line, all play very well, I don't think you can put any blame on that defense. I've seen a few people hating on Roquan for no particular reason. This was a Lamar issue. This was an offensive coaching issue. And this further raises the question, how far can Lamar go in the playoffs? Because he's played 2 top-tier teams in the AFC in the past. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I'm not sure of the specific dates, not last year, he lost to the Bills, scored 3 points. This year, lost to the Chiefs, scored 10 points. Played terrible, turned the ball over, did not utilize his most special ability, his ability to run to the fullest extent. Part of that's on him, part of that's on his coaches, but this really does make me question how far Lamar can go. Because this isn't a Josh Allen situation where you can debate, well, maybe Lamar outplayed Patrick Mahomes' team, let him down. Lamar's team was there, except for Zay Flowers being a moron. Outside of that, he just was the one to sell, not his team.
Well, a lot of people are going to blame Lamar Jackson and heap a majority of the blame on his shoulders. And it's true that he played bad. He had 2 bad turnovers, the interception into triple coverage. Whether you want to complain about that being pass interference or not, it was a bad decision. It deserved to be picked off. The Ravens did not deserve to be rewarded with pass interference there. It's all true that Lamar Jackson played bad, but the largest amount of blame, I think, in this one falls on their offensive game plan because it was horrific. There is no reason that between Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, they have 6 carries and the running backs only had 6 carries. You have been the best rushing team all season long, and then in the biggest game in your franchise's history since the last time you went to the Super Bowl, you decide that you're not going to run the ball through running backs and you're going to solely rely on Lamar Jackson's improved ability to throw the ball from the pocket. That was a dumb decision. The reason you've been good all year long is because your running backs have been productive. Lamar Jackson has been dynamic in the run game, and built off of that, Lamar Jackson has improved as a passer in his ability to push the ball down the field with some better weapons. And you chose to throw that all out the window and then have Lamar go win the game and have 40 passes. You look at the Chiefs and what they did with Patrick Mahomes. Yes, I think Patrick Mahomes still threw the ball 39 times, but Isaiah Pacheco had 24 carries. I think around 24 carries. Clyde Edwards-Helaire added another carry on to that. The Chiefs have been good this season, and the reason they're going to another Super Bowl is because they rely on their run game when their passing game isn't exactly working how they want it to. The Ravens went away from what made them good, and that's why they lost this game.
I mean, how should you pay attention to the Chiefs' defense? I agree, they shouldn't have abandoned the run entirely like they appear to, but after that first drive, the Chiefs really did start loading up the box a lot more than most other teams had. They made Lamar pass it, and I don't know if this is a statement to the issue with his skill players or the skill of the Chiefs secondary. I'm inclined to say the former, but people just weren't really getting open. Like, the run game was taken away due to defensive scheming. The passing game should have been there, but for whatever reason, Lamar's skill players or not, it wasn't really working. My statement there is, okay, Lamar, they didn't have a spy on you constantly. Why aren't you taking off more? Why are, even when you get in the open field, why are you not trying to fight for extra yards, get a few more, maybe do a little bit of stiff arm, force a little bit of contact? You look at that one quarterback sneak in the first half where he breaks away from everyone except L'Jarius Sneed, I think, and instead of trying to outrun L'Jarius Sneed, trying to stiff arm him off, he just kind of goes down 15 yards downfield. Still picked up the 4th down, but that could have been a way bigger play, which for some reason looked like Lamar wasn't willing to try and fight for. That might be why he stayed healthy this year. He doesn't take as much contact as he did last season. And hey, if that works in the regular season, great, keep doing it. But this is the playoffs. This is a Super Bowl you're playing for. and you're still shying away from contact.
Well, I agree. There were times in the game where he didn't exactly feel the pass rush that well, and there were times where it looked like he could just take off and kind of regain some momentum for that Ravens offense, and he chose not to. I think he played poorly in this game, but when you only run the ball 6 times with your running back and you're not running the ball that much, I mean, even on the 6 carries that Gus Edwards had, he averaged 6 yards a carry. And when you go away from that, it makes the play action game not work at all. The defense doesn't exactly have to worry about you handing the ball off. And it allows the defensive pass rushers to just tee off on your offensive line and on your quarterback. They don't have to worry about if a run's going to be coming downhill right at them. So I think it was poor offensive game planning on the Ravens' part. Yes, the Chiefs' defense is very good. I mentioned that as a reason why the Chiefs could win this game, and I wish I kind of would have stuck with this reasoning. I just didn't see the Ravens' offensive, the way they played games going completely out the window. I didn't think it was going to happen, and it still happened.
I mean, you can say it's the play calling as much as you want. I do think they could have called a better game, but if the defense is just saying, hey, we're going to let you pass it. We're going to put our safeties in the box and trust they can get back in their zones or come up and make plays in the running back, which credit to Kyle Hamilton. He was playing, I know it's the Chiefs safeties I'm talking about, but I feel it's important to mention it. Kyle Hamilton may have played the best game outside that 1 touchdown reception to Kelce of a safety I've ever seen. Like, defensively, he was everywhere. Amazing stopping the run, amazing stopping most of the passes. Slight tangent over. But when you are putting everyone in the box and saying you are going to pass it, and you can't succeed in the pass, I'm not going to say it's on the offensive game plan. I'm saying the offensive game plan adapted, but your quarterback didn't. At the end of the day, I was ready to go out there and argue for Lamar Jackson over Patrick Mahomes if they won this game. I can't do that. I'm having to sit here in my Grinch hat, my leather jacket, and my sunglasses and talk about Patrick Mahomes going to his, 5th Super Bowl, 8th Super Bowl, 500th Super Bowl, it feels like. I've had enough of this, man. I am upset and disappointed in Lamar.
Well, it also feels like they wasted what was clearly a more talented team. Even in that game, I feel like we saw it a little bit, and all their mistakes threw everything out the window. I mean, if Zay Flowers doesn't fumble out of the back of the end zone, and Lamar Jackson on a drive where they're moving the ball down the field with ease, he throws into triple coverage, they win that game by at least a touchdown. So even with all the mistakes they made, you take 2 away and they win pretty comfortably with how good their defense was playing. So it feels like a massively wasted opportunity. And I think Lamar deserves blame for how he played because he did play poorly, but I think the offensive game plan was really bad.
I'm giving it I think I already shared this with you. I'm giving it 50 on Lamar, 35 on the offensive game plan. Can't say anything about the defense. That defense did their absolute best. And I'm going to say 15, that final 15, solely on Zay Flowers. What a moron. I really do like the peak wide receiver idiot behavior of catching the pass, clearly taunting. I know some people look, he was grabbing his foot. If he was grabbing your foot, just shake him off you. Don't push him down. Don't flex on him. Don't throw the football at him. That is a 15-yard penalty. That's indisputably a 15-yard penalty. Then fumbling the ball in the end zone, and then having a tantrum on the sideline and cutting your hand open, so you are no longer a viable receiving threat and have to throw it to old man Odell Beckham Jr. 3 times in the final drive of the game. Doing all that is incredibly stupid. That's at 15, maybe 20% of the blame on Zay Flowers.
Well, in your text me, you did place the majority of the blame on the offensive coaching staff. And
I thought I said 40, 30, 30 on Lamar coaching staff, Zay. I'm downgrading it some because of how much of a moron Zay is. He's still a rookie wide receiver. I will say Jordan Addison not doing stupid stuff like that in the conference championship game. Some would say he didn't play in a conference championship game. I'd say, hey, his hand's still fully intact.
Anyway,
you got anything else?
Well, where was this Travis Kelce all season long?
Oh, man. See, I made a TikTok about it. I don't like plugging our own stuff in these, but you're 20 minutes in, so you already saw it or you're going to see it. You people pissed off Travis Kelce with all that Taylor Swift hate, the AI images, all that crap, and look at where it got you. That was the best game he's played all year, I think. I mean, you can say what you want about yards, reception, whatnot. The degree of difficulty where he was making those catches, turning his lateral mobility, nothing better. Scoring a touchdown on one of the best safeties in football I've really come around on in recent weeks, Kyle Hamilton. Top tier stuff. If that guy shows up in the Super Bowl, the 49ers might be in trouble.
Prime Travis Kelce is back and playing for the Chiefs. And it's when you need it. You don't need it early in the season. You don't need it in the middle of the season. The fact that he's playing as good as he is now, The Chiefs, I'm going to predict them when we do a predictions video to beat the 49ers. They have all the tools on offense. They're healthy at the right time. Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl last year, barely being able to scramble. So it is going to be a lot for that 49ers defense to handle next week. With Rashee Rice, he's getting better and more involved in that offense every single week. And the fact that teams have to worry about him now and also playoff MVS.
You forget the amount of drops playoff MVS had on the Packers. You apparently have a short memory.
He iced the game.
Yeah, Travis Kelce playing like he's in his prime, CeeDee Lamb 2.0, and then the actual kneecap biter, not Dan Campbell, Isaiah Pacheco, running aggressively. That's a rough order for any defense to stop. Granted, Baltimore held them to 17, so maybe pump the brakes on that a little bit. But there's a big difference between being outside in Baltimore and then being in a dome in Las Vegas. Also, I saw this tweet. I think it's important to call attention. It must be horrible to be a Raiders fan watching the two franchises, the 49ers and the Chiefs, the two teams you absolutely hate the most, play a Super Bowl in your home stadium. Meanwhile, you've got Aiden O'Connell starting for you at quarterback. Welcome to hell, gents. Anyway, are we going to predict the Pro Bowl next week, or are we about that?
I don't think we're doing that.
We're not doing the Pro Bowl games.
Do we want to talk about the people?
Going to dot up the AFC in dodgeball.
Do we want to talk about the people that are so upset with Taylor Swift getting posted on NFL's Instagram or shown on TV?
Get a life, man.
I don't see those people getting so upset when they show Brock Purdy's family on the TV, which they showed him about 12 times every time he made a completion. People don't get upset about that, but when they show one of the most famous people in the world who happens to be the significant other of one of the greatest tight ends of all time who's playing on the field, all of a sudden it's an issue.
Not a significant other yet, just merely dating. We will not get into that brand of speculate. We need to start the podcast with these takes so we can get the Swiftie retention rate and then give them football opinions. We've learned something here. We've put together something. Next week, Taylor Swift podcast. Anyway, I will briefly say, if Lamar Jackson bagged Beyonce 5 years ago, we would be seeing as much, if not greater, social media posts for that. Alas, he didn't. Instead, there's Jay-Z. Anyway, those were our thoughts on the conference championship games. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Drop your Super Bowl prediction. Tell us what you think is going to happen. And if you're a Taylor Swift fan and are still watching this video somehow, 1, how the hell are you here? 2, smash that like button. And we will see you in the next episode.